World War II, the most devastating conflict in human history, shaped the political, economic, and cultural landscapes of our modern world. But what if the Axis powers had emerged victorious instead of the Allies? Imagine a world where Adolf Hitler's vision for global domination wasn't crushed, where the Third Reich expanded far beyond Europe, and where Imperial Japan held its grip over the Pacific. The trajectory of civilization would have taken a dark and dystopian turn, fundamentally altering everything we know, from national borders to personal freedoms. In this alternate reality, totalitarianism would have flourished instead of democracy, and the values we take for granted today might have been suppressed. Let's dive into this altered timeline and explore how one of the most pivotal moments in history could have shaped a terrifying new world. And as we go, share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think would be the biggest change if the Allies lost? In this version of events, imagine a failed D-Day invasion. The beaches of Normandy become a graveyard for Allied forces, their efforts thwarted by superior Axis strategy and overwhelming firepower. With Western Europe still under Nazi control, the liberation of France never occurs. The British Isles, isolated and surrounded, eventually fall under siege. US forces, discouraged and facing political backlash at home, withdraw across the Atlantic. Soviet resistance in the East collapses after the Germans secure key victories in Stalingrad and Moscow. The world watches in horror as democracy falters and fascism spreads like wildfire. Underground resistance movements struggle but ultimately fail under relentless crackdowns. And with no Allied success to inspire hope, authoritarian regimes solidify their rule. What do you think? Could freedom have ever recovered after such a global collapse? Tell us below. With no one left to oppose them, the Nazi regime expands rapidly. A greater Germanic Reich stretches from the Atlantic to the Ural Mountains. Hitler enacts his full vision for a racially purified Europe, resulting in mass relocations, systemic genocide, and total cultural eradication of those deemed undesirable. The Holocaust intensifies, unchecked by global condemnation. Children grow up indoctrinated in schools designed to produce loyal soldiers and obedient citizens. Art, music, and literature are censored or redefined to align with Nazi ideology. Freedom of speech becomes a forgotten relic of the past. Surveillance becomes omnipresent. The concept of thought crime is no longer fiction, it's daily life. Can you imagine growing up in a world where history is rewritten and questioning authority is a death sentence? Sound off in the comments. On the other side of the globe, Japan achieves dominance in Asia and the Pacific. China falls entirely under imperial rule, and Australia, weakened and abandoned by the West, becomes a vassal state. The United States loses key naval battles and eventually retreats from Pacific territories, ceding control to the Japanese Empire. The Pacific becomes a militarized zone, with puppet governments established across Southeast Asia. Cultural identities are replaced with a singular imperial narrative. The use of kamikaze tactics becomes normalized, even glorified. Japanese imperialism fuels an economy based on conquest, and a tightly controlled media ensures total ideological alignment. Would resistance have sparked a future revolution, or would the world have accepted this new order? Let's hear your theory in the comments. Humiliated and politically fractured, the United States turns isolationist once more. Fearing infiltration and subversion, the US government adopts increasingly authoritarian policies to maintain order. Civil liberties are sacrificed for national security. Minority groups face suspicion and persecution. McCarthyism becomes a permanent mindset rather than a passing phase. With the rise of fascist regimes abroad, American democracy becomes a shadow of itself. Elections continue, but media manipulation and fear-mongering dominate. Public trust in institutions erodes. Military budgets skyrocket while education and healthcare suffer. The American dream slowly dissolves into paranoia. Do you think the US could have retained its core values in such a climate? Drop your thoughts below. Without Allied scientific collaboration, progress in fields like nuclear energy, computing, and medicine take alternate paths. The Manhattan Project is never completed, and the atomic bomb remains a concept rather than a weapon. However, Nazi Germany pushes ahead in rocketry and aerospace, possibly leading to a different kind of Cold War, one between Berlin and Tokyo. Innovation becomes the tool of the state. Technology is used not to improve lives but to enhance surveillance and control. Artificial intelligence is developed primarily for military and propaganda purposes. Scientific minds are either co-opted or eliminated. The Internet, if it ever arises, functions as a government tool rather than a platform for free expression. How would you survive in a world where even your thoughts could be monitored? Scary thought, right? Let's talk about it in the comments. In this alternate timeline, culture is no longer diverse. It's dictated. Books, movies, music, and art are all repurposed to serve authoritarian goals. Historical events are rewritten to glorify the victors. Museums become temples of propaganda. Languages deemed undesirable are banned. Names of cities and people are altered to fit a singular vision. Education becomes indoctrination. From a young age, children learn a sanitized version of history that glorifies conquest and obedience. Creative expression is tightly monitored, with harsh penalties for nonconformity. Societal norms are dictated not by ethics but by power. Imagine losing your entire cultural identity, your traditions, your stories, your heroes. Would you fight to preserve them or adapt to survive? The economic balance of the world shifts drastically. The US dollar no longer reigns supreme. Instead, Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan established their own currencies and trade networks. Resources from conquered territories are exploited, fueling massive war economies. Globalization still occurs but not for mutual benefit. Instead, it becomes an extension of imperial control. Worker rights vanish. Labor camps replace factories. Wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, while the masses toil under strict supervision. Innovation is stifled and social mobility becomes nearly impossible. Would you risk everything for a better life or accept your place in the New World Order? Share your thoughts below. Eventually, cracks begin to form between the Axis powers. Competing ideologies, resource scarcity, and power struggles create tensions between Berlin and Tokyo. A new Cold War emerges, not between East and West but between two totalitarian giants. Spy games, proxy wars, and covert sabotage become the new norm. Neutral countries become battlegrounds for influence. Nations too weak to defend themselves are drawn into conflicts they never wanted. Nuclear weapons, finally developed by both powers, create a constant threat of annihilation. Could peace have ever been achieved, or would this Cold War have escalated into a final catastrophic battle? Let's speculate below. Not everyone accepts the New World Order. Underground movements emerge across continents, fueled by the memory of freedom. Smuggled books, pirate radio stations, and encrypted messages become the tools of rebellion. Heroes rise in the shadows, risking everything to preserve truth and dignity. These movements, though fragmented, share a common goal: to reignite the spark of liberty. Secret schools teach forbidden history. Art becomes resistance. Every small act of defiance becomes a symbol of hope. If you lived in this timeline, would you join the resistance, or stay silent to protect your family? Eventually, resistance reaches a tipping point. A massive coordinated uprising in key territories signals the beginning of the end. Civil wars erupt within the Axis states. Brave leaders rise from the ashes. The cost is staggering, but the dream of freedom begins to shine once more. New nations are born from old empires. War crimes are exposed. Truth commissions reveal the horrors of the past. A global reckoning unfolds. Humanity stands at a crossroads. Either repeat the cycle or build something better. Do you believe that even in the darkest times, people can fight back and rebuild a brighter future? Comment your thoughts. Looking at this alternate reality, one truth becomes clear. History matters. The sacrifices made during World War II ensured a future where liberty had a chance to flourish. The Allied victory wasn't just a military success. It was a stand for human rights, for truth, for hope. This scenario isn't just an exercise in imagination. It's a reminder of how fragile our freedoms can be. It's a call to cherish the world we inherited and strive to protect it. Because in another reality, everything could have turned out very differently. If this scenario made you think, inspired you, or gave you chills, smash that like button, share it with a friend, and leave your thoughts in the comments. And remember, history belongs to those who remember it.